Toy Tini Kukwana Gongdang Dalu agency organization who are safefamilies.org Nanyaho Lujerov Merced. Naya Ilu agency ba ja foster le ya de one yet si kwa ja temi minua. Especially to Japan near ya de roka sang minua a gaha de your keep chitao to minua limika high le ya de Kasamot minua mujara adoption a lo more ja family lamutsai to minua and lamutu here. Olini Haina Lalu agency na then tao go the go chi shong na chin day here. Nu unofficially to on behalf of that she ni the very to so shia pa lu agency na ni thuli tata so be jejon shada ni ku de haroni ti to chwalu week na ku yo mo ja agency the ja services na to mo pa w community go pe pao tia chong fu mi ni ka na ha wa de ya services ja yo mo benefit pe chin ning mong tia. So I was just sharing that, every week I talk about different services in the community,
right,
and how its impact and how the benefit can come to our community as well, and vice versa is coming to yours.
Right.
I was just really intrigued by meeting you and how you're involved with the church and all the aspect of the spirit world, and then and then doing this. This is like who would do something like that?
Yeah, I suppose for me it's that the spiritual world in my mind is more real than even the physical world, and you can tell that by human interaction.
Yeah.
When we interact, there's a deeper level of interaction than just what's said and felt. There's a deeper, even a spiritual recognition of this is another human being. I want to honor this person and respect this person. So through that, you come to realize, in my faith, I'm a Christian, I learned the teachings of Jesus show up the most when I actually show kindness to someone else. Yeah.
And it's not hard to do.
No.
And Tori, the time you saw the new thing to do, belong to Ilu Church in your home, said, so Toya, a bit at Sahatia, Yoning Shipana, Yoning Lamushiko, Shia, Dolamujo, okay, and really Hailu, okay, Gopalko on a gay, only it's a gay she hot signal. You're young, Yina, Niji Honyo Gilly. And I was just telling how simple it is just to be kind.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost you anything, right? And so, Tori, Hoshinji, Tamoli, 3 months that we met.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about that, and then finding out at the Shinan Wali Jatian again, even the and the thing about it is that you're a male.
Sure.
A lot of that is really hard to believe that, but then I guess the Western culture, most of the men are more active in being part of organizations and good causes and things. So I'm not surprised, but when we talk about, fostering children.
Sure. Oh, well, that's, I actually have a friend of mine who I was talking to him about Safe Families and what a wonderful program it is and ministry, really, but it doesn't have to be thought of as a ministry, just a kindness to these children and to the parents that find themselves in a hard situation. They need, they need someone to help them, and there's other families. It's good for them to know there are other families that can get involved and can help them through that stressful season, whether they're struggling with something, it could be even addiction, or it could just be a really hard situation. They lost a loved one, and they're overwhelmed, and they're panicking, and they're turning to decisions that aren't healthy. This could give them a chance to get back on their feet, to have another family care for the children.
As being a female, if that was my situation and I came, is there any cost that I have to incur to be able to help my child?
No, and
how does it work?
That's the most common, is usually it's women with children that end up needing these services. A lot of times the mom is the one that's still holding the children in a crisis situation, in most cases. So the beauty with Safe Families is you come and usually Christian families, but they could be non-Christian families, are approaching the situation and saying, we are here to help. We're raising our hands. My wife and I, for instance, went through the approval process. My wife and I paid the fees. There's only a few, like fingerprinting fees, things like that. But we came in and we said, we want to be available to be a safe family. And we've had one situation so far, but we're open to other situations where we could care for a child for a couple of weeks, or we could care for a child for several months.
Wow.
But in most cases, it's only up to 3 months at the most where you're helping.
So the component is to have foster parents taking these children in as a safe home.
It's similar to foster care in that sense,
Right.
but it's not quite as stringent. It's earlier before it's gotten to the foster care system.
I see. And then as a female coming in with a bearing child, does it matter the age, or I'm just having to give birth?
It could be anywhere from you find out you're pregnant and you want to keep the child, but you don't know whether or not you're going to adopt. And so instead of having to make that decision, you could just plan on going ahead, having the child, caring for the child for a little while, or right away putting it in with a family that will care for it, and you don't have to adopt it out yet.
Okay.
You could actually have that peace to go, I don't know what my decision will be yet. I want to see the baby. I want to be around the baby for a while. Or whatnot. So you can actually hand the child off and have it be cared for a season. And if you do decide to adopt, it's too painful and you don't want, then you could have the child go through an adoption agency at that point.
Let me go ahead and tell them.
Yeah, please.
ถ้าจะเนี่ยอย่ารู้ agency นั่นน่ะอย่าอีรู้องค์การในใจต่อจะมีหนัวหล่อว่าอยู่ตู้ as อย่าลีนี่เป้าที่จะ foster children and then not only that อย่าแต่ก็อย่าตุเนี่ยตุจีก็ชิมว่ามีตู้มีหนัวก็หันเชิญตู้มีหนัวแล้วหล่อก็หมดใจหล่อตู้แต่ชีตุเนี่ยตัวเราทตัวเดียไปเจอเดียอีทุกปนเนี่ยในสิ่งเจมีหนัวยาเจนี่ชิเป้าที่นี่มันเกณฑ์เชียนดาวยาallow you to keep the baby นะเจได้จอเนี่ยจอลูกเชียจอตัวมีหนัวอยู่รอมันมันเจ้า agency นะเจ agency ที่เนี่ยโคตรจะขวดเจ้า so อีอย่างที่คนดาว but ก็จะ necessarily even though they belong to ลูกเชิญดาวจีฮะแต่ก็อยู่จู่มูลลูกเชิญก็ที่ qualify ดาว now as a parent when you become a foster parent
Or we'll call them safe families.
Safe families,
when you
right.
become a safe family.
Safe family.
Right.
Does the state help me or financial? How does the financial come in?
That part you can work with the 800 number. You can find that on Safe Families, safe-families.org. But the website's the best way to start because through that you can reach out to the organization called Safe Families. And it's like a clearinghouse, and then they will find a family in a local community close to you. Fresno and Merced, Modesto, all of these towns have safe families that want to help.
Okay.
But we also, and more urgently, sooner, we need families to volunteer to be safe families, because the more families we can have available with their homes ready, the more the children can be brought into the cycle.
What are the requirements to have a safe home in my home to be able to get one of those children so I can take care of it?
It's pretty relaxed. You do need to work hand in hand with an existing local presence of safe families, which each of these towns have someone that's acting as that presence.
Do they look at your financial background? Do they run fingerprint background checks?
Right, that's one of, so two things. I'll back up a little bit and answer one of your questions about finances. That you don't get paid like you do with a foster care program.
Sure.
One of the benefits of that is that it's kind of clean. There's no risk of wrong motives. You're doing this because you want to care. So it does help to have a little cushion financially. If you're going to bring, it's kind of like if you're pregnant, you're going to have another baby, and it's not just babies. It could be other children, but you're bringing this child into your home. And so you need to plan on having enough resources
so
if you're going to do that.
Basically, you're taking the whole financial responsibility, clothing, food, bed, and everything else. Okay.
Now, you can apply for what that child is eligible for. It's almost like a single-person family. You treat that child, so you can go in for different services. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs of that. But there's some pretty neat creative things that have been done where the child is eligible for this or that. And so you can qualify for that child.
And so the Shinola Law Agency safe-families.org แล้วneed เลยต้องการจะครอบครัวเนี่ยสิ family เยอะลงมุดใจจะมีอยู่ในหลอป้าอยู่ตู่นี่จะไม่มี the foster care program ที่หาเดียน the state อยู่มุ่งเนี่ยอยู่ so in essential ตัวเนี่ยที่ตัวจีนอยู่มุ่งเนี่ยเสียเราไม่อยู่ต่อตัวมีอยู่ในเทียปุ่มมอเตอร์นอเทียแต่ชิโน่เรา need จะครอบครัวนะก็เลย volunteer เลยยังไม่ได้แก่อยู่เรามุ่งรู้จักตัวมีตัวมีอยู่ใจจะมีอยู่ตัวมีอยู่เราดูอยู่ family ตัวเทียhow about the children? Do you know the numbers that you guys have in the agency now that are in need?
Well,
Must be.
I know that if you back it up, let's go at it this way because I don't know all the stats for. It's almost impossible to track that,
Yeah,
right? If you think
okay.
about it, because they're not officially in a foster care system yet,
Right.
right? So they're not. It's hard to come up with numbers, but what you could do is, for instance, in Merced, from what I understand, there's about 700 foster care children.
Oh, right.
I could be off on that number, but from what I understand, there's hundreds.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's thousands, over 1,000 in Fresno County. I don't know all the numbers of these communities, but if we back it up from that and we go to pre-foster care, there's always going to be families that are at risk for losing their custody of their children. And so if we think about that there's probably a very large number that are needing this service, but we aren't advertising it loudly yet because we don't have families ready to help.
Right.
So if we can
That's
get
amazing.
families first, and often it works well to get a group that get excited about this together in each church, or it could be in each
I was gonna
region,
say,
or
yeah.
even maybe in a neighborhood. You have a couple neighbors where your kids play together, and you go, wow, why don't we get into this thing called Safe Families and bring a couple children into this community and take care of them until their parents get their feet back under them.
Wow. You know, we came to America as refugees.
Sure.
We had to get sponsors.
Right.
So they take a whole family. So it is possible.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't be where I'm at today without the foster sponsorship of
Wow,
the family.
wow.
And that's totally obligated on them.
Right.
When we came over, you know, they helped
Wow.
us assimilate into this
Wow.
the Western culture and not a word of English. Can
It's
you
such
imagine
service
that?
to you guys,
yeah,
to your family,
and it's all
individuals.
you know, a church-based
Wow.
group.
Wow.
So I'm very, very thankful. So
Yeah.
this is very good for me.
It's exciting. I mean,
Yeah.
could you imagine, I guess I'll turn passionate on this, that could you imagine more people who say that they fear and love God actually following through by caring for the orphan or the potential orphan? These are children that are either they are becoming orphans or they're at risk for becoming orphans if we don't intervene and say, hey, parents, we'll care for your child. It's your choice. You don't have to put them into our home. But if you'd like to put this child into my home, my wife and I will care for this child until you get your feet back under you. Could you imagine more families raising their hand and saying, let me jump in and do this?
Would there ever be a risk for the mom, per se, to say, I give up my child today, would I lose the custody of the child?
No, because Safe
Ever?
Families has no legal ability to
Okay.
prevent. Now, obviously, you have introduced more eyes and ears into that child's life, so there's a level of advocacy, but that's where, for instance, CASA, court-appointed special advocates, things like that would be appropriate as far as an official advocate. We actually are protecting both, the parents, and we can have interaction with the parents, which in the foster care system there isn't that kind of a thing. So that's nice, to be able to have actual relationship with the parents. In our one story, it's special because we have a friendship with the mom.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, we've had her over for dinner. We know her. We've gotten to hold this child, and it's become like an aunt and uncle figure for this child. We didn't even become official Safe Families for the child. We became official as a Safe Family available for that child, but we never actually had the child live with us.
Oh, okay.
But still, the process was so special because we were privy to the information. We knew that there was a child that needed a home. I found out through my activity in the community. So I volunteered to the mother. I said, what if my wife and I become a Safe Family? And that gave her such a peace to know that a family would be willing to take that child in. And it just calmed her nerves, helped her to get her feet back under her. So she didn't even end up using the service.
Yeah.
And yet it gave her such a peace to know someone would do it.
Yeah.
So that's something we can offer to others.
That
It's really
must be a,
special.
tragic. Anyway, so thôi có hạt tiền, do tiền có do ít khâu khoai,แต่ฉันก็สามารถเก็บป้าเราอย่าป้าจะรู้ตัวนี้จอเนี่ยแล้วก็มัวจะมีหนัวแต่เขาขวดรอแล้วอย่าจะมีหนัวป้องจะอย่างเนี่ยจะสิเขายังเขาชั่วเขาได้เขาเจอมุนก้าเขาขวดดินเดอวันเตยยมป้องจะมีหนัวมุนก้าเขาขวดหลังเดอเนี่ยเจนึกมัวอีคอเตียนึกมัวเขาช่วยเป็นนอเตียได้เรากูเนาะยี่อีเขาขวดกูซาสปอนเซอร์เลยอย่าเจ้าตัวมีหนัวเนาะละป้าตูอันเที่ยวตัวเนี่ยนึกกูmua tàu này lúc này là một nhau ok lỡ này chị để thiết lý bát tàu này tôi khen lỡ này chị nhiều thiết lý bát tàu này ít chuột thế mà này chỉ trong cái tiền nhà bây giờ tiền tiền rồi nó là có sao cho của tôi nhiều chơi vậy Kun chai cha ile cha kuma cha ni kala na ke ku ya pong tu minyo na forever. I was afraid of that as a woman that if I give up my child today, when I lose it forever to your system.
That's a natural fear.
That's a natural fear. But at the same time, you both for sure there. Look how corny it's you to minyo. But papa you hit to maybe still mo li mo jo iyo show sha yi show na lo until go get better. So you probably would work in cases women who are pregnant and go to jail or something like that.
Yes.
They can come back and oh my gosh.
And that's a frequent one, actually.
That's a frequent one. I just imagine that would be.
Yeah.
你個睇咗啲，以前民用菜都用嚟學聖經民用嘢啦，學咪做字啲人嚟攞嘢，啲用要你要自己去 take care 聽啦，要做乜要自己 take care 聽啦，每一個啲 system 咯 organization 啊，不使個對民用，不要做 until 個冇 serve 個 time 但，啲個咪就咁攞，啲個咪厲害啦冇，做個對民用啲啦，個就到 lose 呢 completely，要一個啲我要都寫字啊，做乜嘅要寫都很難。How did you and your wife got involved in this? If you want to share a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, so we have some very good friends. There's a man named Jed Medifind. Him and his wife, Rachel Medifind, are dear friends of ours.
Okay.
And Jed is the head of a larger organization called CAFO. Okay. It's Christian Alliance for the Orphan. So it's through that organization. I came to be aware of there's over I think close to 150 different organizations that he's representing back in DC.
Okay.
And then they do a summit every year that's all about the orphan. It's really special.
That's wonderful.
There's tons of organizations that are all about caring for orphans, which is right? We should be caring for orphans.
That's right.
They're very vulnerable. They have done nothing wrong in these situations of crisis, and yet they often receive the brunt of they receive a lot of consequences of these sad stresses.
Right.
So anyway, and so my friend Jed, I studied some of these different organizations when I moved into Merced, and I thought, I think I'll pick one and be kind of a hands and feet for a cause in an area. So it's kind of speaking of babies, it's kind of a baby for me. Like it's something I'm excited about. I feel like it's something we can really make a difference as people to get involved in something that's pre-foster care. Because there's nothing that's sadder than a child. In some ways, there's nothing sadder than a child in foster care if you think about it, because they're not. I have two adopted brothers. My brothers are my brothers.
Okay.
We've adopted them. I look at them as my brothers. They look dramatically different than me.
Wow.
African American. We look drastically. But
how old did you guys adopt them when they were?
10 years old. I mean, I was 10, and then I was 14. So they're 10 and 11 years younger than me.
Okay.
So they're in their 20s now. But they're great guys. I really love my brothers. They're my brothers, right? In foster care, the challenge and sadness is that they don't feel like they're real siblings in the home that they're in, right?
Okay.
And so the beauty with Safe Families is it's pre-foster care. We're trying to catch those children and give them either back into their parents' arms, right, as best we can to restore that relationship, or if the parents are ready or they're not ready, there's an opportunity to go into adoption, potentially, instead of always having to go into foster care. And then the older they get, the less likely often to be adopted. So this is a wonderful opportunity for families to be able to help biological parents reabsorb their children into their families, if at all possible. That's the main goal. If it doesn't happen, then at least it's a gentler way to go into an adoption route.
Sure.
So.
Wow, that's exciting. Toy to go ahead to go there. It's a little agency na and when the dao ya the how ya the little pre-foster care na go no dia ya vi dia ni hen to poni how la mo involved the how little agency na la mo pa ni na go dia la lu church ni to pon you ho jet na medicine na ya I to pon you jong na lo belong to ilu church who Christian Alliance for the orphan for the orphans. Okay. La mo li I po chi lu agency organization is that nationwide?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nationwide, you're based out of international.
Yeah.
You're at Washington D.C. Think on it's a good sponsor. It means you go to here. Even though the Chita sponsor officially, you don't know ni talamanji to ni and you don't know okay. Buy you to me take care to me on the theater near the only Lord Chipo Kahachi. You eat to near jail. You got here to me here. But no to King law no go more auto a good day. ya atu du ni he ni ku to adapt la mo wa ku tin than nu thia ke la mo li ko shong ko a shong under nu thia ta shina no mo nang go to shong what you're 38
34
ni wa pe to lo shong da shi ni atu ku tin na ya atu mi me ka du ni ku chi ku adapt la wa I ko ko na ni ku tie jo le ku ti tie le bi tie ni chi mo le khana wa to I ko experience example to nu ha tie lo che nang na tu 我的家里拿了到这边有了ตู้เจตุเนี่ยตู้จีเนี่ยดับ了วันนี้ตู้ที่เตี้ยละเนี่ยทุกเนี่ย拿了นี่ลุงกับเป่าเลยเนี่ยเอาตู้ไปแล้วเที่ยand so ขณะนี้เขาจริงๆอย่างนี้จะเชื่อ in the city of Merced what would you think about the way that our community is based how is receptive if the community towards this type of exchange or agency service
Sure yeah. I think it would be very receptive. I think, again, our big dilemma is getting enough families on board. And so for Merced in particular, my passion, my hope would be that the churches initially, that we would lead the way as the professing Christian believers to absorb these children. So if we could get literally 2 to 3 families. Often it's a young family, but it could easily be a baby boomer family. It could be, no, it doesn't. You know, it just, and ideally a couple. You know, it'd be nice to have a mother and a father, but there's plenty of opportunity for single women in particular to be able to do these kinds of services. So I think they would be very, very receptive from everything I've known. I've done door-to-door introductions. I've done a lot of conversations with individuals. The problem, again, is that we need enough families on board to be able to receive, so supply and demand, right? Yeah, we have plenty of supply of children, and I think women in particular would love this opportunity to have a hand, to be absorbed into a family, prayer answered, to be cared for by a family, loved on, given meals, encouraged, given a chance to get their feet under them, think through life again. And maybe if they're in maybe even, let's say, an abusive situation, it gives them a chance to step away from that a little bit. Sometimes they feel financially dependent in their situation, if it's abuse, for instance. Right. Well, in this case, they are able to step away and get a different job maybe or something and get their feet back under them.
That's interesting, because I was just thinking, too, that like a lot of women going through the transition of divorce and separation.
Right.
If they got 2 little kids, a 2 and a 4, and they don't have no home, they're going to be in the street. So in that case, they can come in and you guys will pick up the children and give it to...
Right, so we're not going to, we can't call it like an extended free daycare. It's not. But let's say.
But that would be the worries of a wife.
Yeah, well, and especially if it's a crisis type of situation, then that's especially when we want to be doing these things. If it's long-term care for the child, then there might be other services. But if it's overnight and consistent care for that child, because for instance, my wife and I were ready to care for this little guy. He would have been in our home day after day, overnight. It's not just drop off during the day and then we actually take him in as one of our own. Yeah. For it could be a few weeks, it could be a few months. Yeah. And we care for him. We treat him as one of our own. It gives the mom a chance to have peace of mind. She can come and visit him and everything and know he's okay. It gives her a chance to go if she needs to go through a program, if she needs to go and get herself employed somewhere or whatever to be able to care for that child.
Because I think about that, and I deal with women every day, and that's probably the most challenging anything that a woman can go through. They worry sick about their kids, and then they got their own emotional battles to deal with. You know, wow.
Right.
What would you right now recommend if, as a single mom, to be somebody that would want to do something like that?
So you're saying a single mom who would want to care for a child?
Yeah, to care for a child.
Okay. As a single mom who wants to care for a child, then she has a system in place to handle being a single mom, right? Okay. You're saying she wants to bring in a child, one of the safe families. Awesome. Yeah, so if she has her lifestyle figured out where she can take on another child, then she can apply to be a safe family, you know. And that's one of the most admirable roles, right? These single women who are caring for their children, loving on them, holding down a job, all these different things. So they're some of the most heroes, to be able to do something like this.
Yeah,
so that'd be amazing.
Nature.
Yeah. That would be amazing. Yeah. Maybe they'll lead the charge, and us, two adult families will come in and help. But we all need to consider it at least. I think it's right up there with. There's plenty of families that consider adoption, right?
And a lot of people out there, they said, you know what, I want to make a difference in the community and the world, and what can I do? I'm going to wait till I get rich and filthy, then I can buy. You can do that right now. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to have a mansion, and then you can say, now I can open up services. I just don't think so. Anybody and everybody could help out, even if you're say families has a child right now that is in need of a home for a week or 2 weeks or 24 hours. That's making an impact on that kid's life. Otherwise, the choice is that they could be in the street with their druggy mom or something like that. That's the case scenario that I would think about.
Sure. And actually, that's the idea, is that the mom feels, I'm just trying to imagine, I mean, even the own situation I got to help out with is, the mom could feel like there's no other alternative, and I'm going to be a bad mom if I let him into the foster care system. I mean, there's just so many risks. There's children that have been killed. There's women who have committed suicide. There's women who have been killed. Right? There's horrible situations that happen when a woman's in crisis and she's looking at this child, and this is hell to her. I mean, not the child, but the situation.
Yeah.
And the child is like,
innocent.
I'll do anything for you, and yet I'm panicking right now.
Yeah.
So this is such a special opportunity to come in, and if you think about it, we so quickly blow up ministry or doing good works to need to be huge. Well, what about the little things that we can do in our own neighborhoods or in our own home that are huge impact for someone, and it could have wave effects on future generations. My wife's family took in a young woman and cared for her, and they have treated her as their daughter all these years. And she's a wonderful, wonderful woman. She's a nurse now. She's the sweetest sister and friend to me. As my sister-in-law, I count her. So I just think there's so much opportunity for us to really care for other people, and I think we want the glory to do some big, great thing for people. What about the less glorious but so much more meaningful things that nobody else sees? Just that gentle loving for someone.
You're so on target. I like that. thôi thì cô hay thì hay cho cái ship ba li nó là chỉ cho li bị thiệt luôn sự tụ mà sa thì nó thì cũng mua nhiều mà cũng mà li khi ilu organization ilu chế ba mi tu mi nhua là do ba được bọn nhẹ tu chế là do mà ba được cho nên chọn nhẹ mà khi ilu school bây giờ tỏ thì nó thì bị mua nhiều nè li lu agency nó the safe families nó ta xin nó mua ít cho mi nhua lỡ trâu cái tấm bằng because là nè là chỉ mua tấm bằng cho lỡ là giờ tụi nè này họ sinh mi nhua họ chỉ mua ba chuyện nhỏ chỉ mua là từ yo ở những ở chua thì giờ đi nó nè giờ ít họ urgency ba chuyện mi nhua nó and so giờ có sai giờ ít tụi single parent này có sai you tụi mi nhua xin là có một tỏ tụi mi nhua nó là bự ở bên nu nhỏ ở bên nu yêu anh thì ở bên lì là it's okay nè chỉ giờ thì có nhỏ tả lì nè chỉ giờ thì cái này nó có một blonde nu nè everybody giờ thì wait till I'm really wealthy and I can do something. You know, that's just mentality, and I think it runs in my culture that they say the same. Sure. And so,
maybe we could bring in the widow's mite story, right? You know, we want people to see us pouring money into the treasuries, but yet back home we have plenty more money. What about if we come and we throw that mite with our whole energy and know that there's so much more joy in giving than taking and receiving? So.
Absolutely. That's just, we have to really change the society of thinking. Thôi cứ thật sao thì yêu ali kia, giờ có sai ít tu nên có sao make a difference, ba đồ ít tu nên nè, because cái giờ share ít tu mình nó really quickly overnight, see tu mình nó feel so blessed. Thế có chỉ ta đi nó có cho từ tu半年呢，做share thì nè nó cũng mấy khu nhà gì, cũng cho cũng chịu mình phải yêu mà là do ý lý nó because cũng mua tên mình là, a lot of 半年要上到的是那的时候了，开了肚子，了就么呢 tư cho là cho mình nhỏ li còn nói vậy ilu agency và safe families nó chạy tàu có cho mình nhỏ là muốn cho Christian family nhỏ and then là you take care có cho mình tư mình nhỏ until có mình take care ba được có tụ king thì hậu được có tụ king it's a great concept and I just think about the women that I work with every day that they run away from their estranged situation that life threatening and then they got the kids to care for so they can come to your agency and ask for help then it will alleviate so much burden on them and they would be better balanced and then it had so your family nhớ sanh đầu and they họ tiệt sapa itu baby itu child lo nay who the lu safe families .org no la yo lu agency that they really need each your core family the single parent la mu or each ne kho chi khwa ba chai je mi tu mi nyo na la zhou ne lu ba lu je one day ning ga mo zhou foster care before the foster care part comes in
there is another avenue. Let's say in our audience here, there are people who are now currently needing this help, and I'm saying we need families who are ready to help.
Right.
So there's another avenue of learning. It's humbling, but learning to ask for help, even when there's not an official means for help. Right. So letting the people know that are around you. It could be a coworker. It could be someone at church. Letting them know about safe families or about this concept, because you don't have to be a safe family to babysit for a friend,
right.
So I mean that you wouldn't have to have safe families to come in and say, "Oh my goodness, you're telling me about this crisis you're in. You're being vulnerable. You're being honest. You're saying you're scared. You feel like you have to have an abortion, for instance." Which it's a whole different discussion, but what if you don't know if you want to have an abortion? What if you do want to keep the baby? You don't know if you want to keep the baby, but you do want it to live, right? So instead of having to feel like you just need to hide away, be vulnerable with a few people, maybe outside of your circle a little bit, if you feel like that would be safer for your honor, And that's one of the beauties of safe families is you could be a little more anonymous. With this woman, for instance, we were able to care for her. We were totally outside of her circle of friends. I was just someone she had met, and I had mentioned about this organization, and she came back to me and said, "Is that really true?"
Yeah.
And I was able to tell her, "Yes, it is," and it ended up being a connection. So even my wife and I got into this through someone coming to us and telling us they were in crisis. So what I'm saying is it could actually multiply how many families are involved if people who are in crisis would be vulnerable and tell others. And believe in some goodness in humanity enough to say someone might actually help me if I let them know I need help.
Thôi ra hai cho tia li tây dầu bị shit thả nó sân dầu ya tây dầu có gì ít tu xài để xin nó có họ sinh mình nhọอยู่เนื้อเชียนนั่นเราอยากแล้วก็เราอยากก็เราเลยดูทานนะเราลูกเอเจนซี่นะจะช่วยอยากก็ไปจีเลยทอเก็บป้านะเราอยากจีไฮโฆษณาจอเรื่องตื่นลีขณะนี้เขา confidential level ฮะเดียหลังจริงตัวก็กันจริงตัวเลยสามารถจะเก็บป้าตัวก็ซื้อ and so ยอดเดียแต่ชินก็ย้อนเลยอีกเขาตั้งเมย์แต่ชินก็เนื้อเชียนอีก็สังมีเนื้อเราอยากอ้อก็มาอีจะมีเนื้ออีก็จะย้อนเลยเขา situation ก็ต่อฉันเดาลีบาลลูก safe family นั่นเลยยออีกข้อเกยยอดก็โตหมดก็หมดป้าเจ้าก็จะมีหยมันจะเลยหรือตัวมีการหาป้ารอตูก็จะมีตัวมีหยวอันเที่ยวก็เที่ยวตัวเขาหรือเที่ยวตัวว่าเจไปเจียตัวยังจะชั่วคนน้อยก็ถาจะหรือตูนะเจจงลิงเกาหลีนี่ก็จงนอ case นั่นนะอีทุกปัญญาตัว share นึงchỉ bảo mình hạt tiền lúc agency nó bảo yo bảo real là yo bảo tiền á chị cái thà đi nó chị lấy tiêu một trong nên để chị thiết cho tìm nhỏ là một tu đi nó chị lấy mà đi follow through lúc agency này là cũng phải ra hạt tiền lúc agency này cho rong đi đó em nào đi đó lấy như bát ở đó thì tiền cho tụi mình ở mua tên mình cho này cho mình nhỏ because look Congo là yo khó tiệt yo ba chậu tụi mình nhớ cho share sư and soแต่ฉันไป need even ตัวไปต้องการ your families is สัตย์ใจจำnhớ nó là tu mình chỉ là you mình chỉ in tu nên đó but nếu yo ít khó họ trong khi cho cho pan nè là yo ít tu nênแต่ฉันnếu mỗi ít ba mình nhớ ấy nữa ba you chỉ tao đi là nếu mỗi cái nhớ xuyên tao ya cho mình nhớ đó là một cho share mình chỉ cho lợi là mà lấy hàng tiền nên take care cho mình nhớ nó in đủ rồi có thiệt còn này ít khó thiệt chỉ còn cái share ba là họ lúc community as safe families.
And one little administrative
Sure.
thing is it's safefamilies.org with a G at the end.
Oh,
just
okay.
a minor.
Maybe it didn't show up on that little
Yeah.
screen. Yeah, I think I
just,
typed it in.
just so people know that it's org. O-R-G.
And not only that, ni hu da tu 209-352-5552. Tu know your Tory, the phone number.
my cell phone
Yeah, ni hu the cell phone awesome. Jua BGR na gene hai Tory. Halu mong la tao halu mi ka la tao yo ha ni ha ni information chan da na ni hu da pon la. Go to sa tong ye jua yi xia area code. Even though ni yon take ban a lot to ni Paula, yani who don't go tan a go keep with your information confidential, yochi hydroling to yochi kusinadroling to be the be respect ni her privacy, yaline, moneke, non chai lucia de jaila, go be a dollar go jadaning her talina haichi jon taku, bechi mo yajolinda. They were holding a bay really strive for privacy. Is there anything else you want to add about your experience? What about the Asian community, Hmong? Is there any families, children that you know that are going through that system right now?
I don't. I know one child that has been kind of back and forth, possibly going into it. And it's been a really special story. It's the one that I mentioned before.
Okay.
And I just think from that story is why I'm really passionate about it for the Hmong community. For the Hmong community to know that it's available, right? So in this woman's case, it was a situation where the child was conceived outside of her marriage, and so it put her marriage at risk. It put her safety at risk at times. Her husband was, of course, very angry to find out about the child. But it was just such a beautiful opportunity for my wife and I to be able to care for her and care for this child, and now we're friends, you know. And there's just there's so much shame when you you have this covenant of marriage, this promise to stay true to this one person, and I as a man have that obligation just as much as my wife has that obligation to me. But it doesn't feel like an obligation when you choose love, right? When you choose to invest, again, we're talking about giving instead of taking. When you choose to give into the relationship, there's a safety there that is not of this world, right? It's kind of that spiritual thing we were talking about. It's amazing. And so when a husband and wife are giving in to that relationship and pouring into it, there's a safety. Well, when we are outside of our marriage, right, and we're sleeping around or something, it all of a sudden causes so much doubt, so much brokenness. So in this woman's case, there was already infidelity on both sides, and it was just... So the beauty of it is that now there's restoration. There's a relationship. There's an honoring of her as a woman, not her mistakes, not her. She's made mistakes. So had he, her husband, you know, and so had the other man. So there's mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, but we can move on from that, and we can honor each other as humanity, as created to be cherished. And so when we do that as adults, it opens up a huge amount of curiosity and excitement about showing all the more love to vulnerable little children that are a result of mistakes. You know, it's a mistake, but the child's not a mistake.
Yeah, they're totally
She made a
innocent.
mistake. The child's not a mistake.
Oh, wow.
So my brothers are not mistakes. I love my brothers, right? So in the same way, this child is not a mistake. This child is precious and loved and chosen. So now the mom is able to feel that way. She made it through the scary season where she felt only hate and shame, understandably somewhat, but a few months later you don't need to feel that anyway. You don't need to feel that way in the moment. And so now she knows that she is honorable, she's lovely, she's able to love her child, she's able to care and hold her head up, right? And move on and take care of her other children and this child. So for her, it's worked out. At this point, she's still able to call that child her own child.
Oh my God.
It's almost like you're readopting your own child when you are able to keep it, right?
Right.
Because it's so unwanted at first. But if you're able, with a safe family or someone that's acting like that, they don't have to be officially a part of this. If you're able to say, maybe I will end up choosing this child after all. And you have some kind of a buffer. So she had us and she had other friends, and we were her buffer. gave her a chance to breathe and think and make decisions, and now she wants the child. At this point, she wants all of her children, and she's able to. It's just cool.
What a beautiful story,
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah.
Thôi người cứ hẹn cho tia, giờ vì lý do thôi thì anh tụi bọn này cũng muốn share là một ban cho lưu agency nó liền cái họ là một tao trò y trong khu nhiệt gì, tụi nhiệt nó nữa cái gì tụi gì hết tụi nhiệt này sử dụng đó xin cái mua tấm mình gì có bài thả tụ gì tụi bọn này gì họ mua ít tụi mình nhiều outside được họ với họ culture gì này chỉ mong thiệt họ yêu tụi nhiều sang đầu, but thằng đó họ nhớ xuyên được tụi gì là họ yêu này họ chỉ yêu nữa, rồi những cái chỉ是好心理天，nhưng all mistake đó all tụi bọn này thế tụi gì hữu sĩ, và tụi mình nó họ yêu tao lo, vậy đó là tụi này họ nhớ xuyên tụi gì là họ chỉ yêu tụi mình tụi này yêu chỉ yêu, họ chỉ bao nhớ xuyên chấp lại đi, so cái thế là mình chỉ được thôi tụi bọn này là gì, cái họ cho tụi mình nó là tụ in tụ. Until tụi này nó họ chỉ xia, liền mỗi ít time period còn nó cool off là giờ còn nó họ một sát thông hết tiệt. She you only get to noon na to the baby because you think about it ya tu nia the tu chi na all tu na you adult na ning lao la na that she tu mi you lo na tu mi na chi carry a mistake na tu mi na innocent le la hai bia nhưng chiu yo teach tao tu mi baby you no lo ni ne ta shi no je go shi je yo chi shi hao sinh li thiên na je tu mi the le la mo zhao bong dong go ni ji jing go ha jiao tu mi na la mo tu in du and then tụi bọn này họ là một, phong yêu thằng cậu thiên, linh đạo này là真的就梦要 ok này chị,爸anh ấy chỉ mong này này chị, cậu thiên này mua xe rong xe hạt tiền, yêu ở đây cả, thế là ba tàu chế năng nó, thật sự thay nó. Tụi mình nhớ thiên tụi này nó renate là mình nhớ ok này kia,แต่是tụi này họ khó tàu là tụi này tiền, vì thế trong là tụi này yo, chắc chắn cho tụi mình nhớ là yêu tàu là tụi tàu ý à lên tụi own child thiên, bên tàu này tụi mình ý cho ba mình nhớ là thiên, 但是 tụi nó bị别yêu tàu sang đầu thì tụi different culture là này kia, yên nhớ được tụi gì chỉ accept thiên này kia, cái họ này chỉ khó này kia, cái họ là một ba, thiên bài thiên, lưu tụi mình nhớ thiên, 我先等着tụi này thiên, 我lên là chỉ tụi này họ sao sao lo đó chị, tụi mình nhớ nói tụi mình nhớ gì lưu chấp lâu đi, bây giờ nữa tì nữa đi nè, chị tới giờ này nói chị khó tao tụi mình nhớ, on the other reverse side giờ thì chị uống đào này chị, tụi mình nhớ họ bong một trò họ court system, là giờ này tụi mình nhớ tua, liên nói cho case all over the country, parents handle chị tao chị mình nhớ, chị mỗi tụi mình nhớ cho này chị tụi mình nhớ cái tua sơ. And or you know the child get beaten or things like that. You know it's so much overwhelming over the parents that you know they end up hurting their child. And
they do things they would have never. Yeah, they would never have done this in their right mind. But there's so much stress on them from all angles.
Right.
So.
And so bây giờ trong nó là cái nơi thì tiền lưu agency này giờ ý khó thì nếu tao làm một bỏ tao hay tiền chở tao share thì tiền cho babies tiền cho mình nhỏ thì tiền khó nó là cái thì ba tao cho bé tiền uống cái lưu agency này thì so effective. Nếu hiện tụi bọn này thì more share một nó cái thì tụi hay thì tụi recruit bé cho nên là do hay cho bé chọn phu sau đó có bé bảo cho tiền lấy trong mỗi cái agency trong nó ba cho tụi bọn này cho mình nhỏ trong là do the only chỉ是好心，有没有知道这给到的有没有妈 ？Sometimes does it matter on the age?
The age of the host
parent?
parent?
The children?
No.
It varies?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the most common are going to be in the younger bracket, but from what I understand, the highest frequency is infancy, but there's plenty of situations where a child's in danger of going into the foster care, and Yeah, we had some teenage age come up. You start hearing about the families once you become an approved family. So I mean the children.
What is the process to get approved?
It's not bad. So you would need to contact safefamilies.org, and you would go through and reach out to them. Usually they'll work through an adoption agency. From what I understand, they always work through a local adoption agency. So Bethany Christian Services, I believe, is the one in Fresno that's doing it now for our region. And then they'll screen, they'll interact with you as a family. They'll get you the paperwork that you need to fill out. You end up talking a little bit in the paperwork about how you handle discipline and what the culture of your home is like as far as is it a safe family. You know, you're kind of being vetted a little bit in that sense, but it's not terrible at all. And then you do the fingerprinting, and you end up having a home visit to kind of just screen and make sure it's a good place for that child. So
how quickly can the process take place where I can get a child in my home?
For us, we had a more urgent situation for a season, and so we within a few days we were already technically able to take that child in. So that's kind of more of a hyper speed one, but I would give it a few weeks at least to be able to do that. But the beauty is, if needed, if let's say you are that person who's in crisis, you reach out to some family that you trust and say, you could go through this if you'd like, or just help me with my child. That family, if they're open to doing that for you, to being the safe family, they can go through this at a very high speed. It could be just a few days even, or a couple of weeks.
They can use parents like itu ni ko ka salamu sponsor itu minyo na le way mi kho background check to go quickly ni da ta le ri ko jai no de pa shai tao ne ko plus mong le ya van thi sometime ni ya van thi ba chi pau tie de jo urgency le tu minyo na te no ki mo ki itu ni na ne ki drop te minyo off li no le ya tu minyo na need eco housing right away je nyo de kho situation su oling toning go ni zin go tie on your pain no sitting go ti tong zai tu minyo na la pa na go tu tie. How long did you guys care for that child that you had?
We didn't end up ever taking him in overnight.
Okay.
So we would just get to meet with the mom and the baby for a meal here and there, and build relationship
and that's
and
okay
friendship.
too.
Yeah, that was really special. You know, we still are friends. You know.
I like that.
Yeah.
Even though they got to tell the minyo the tell tu kia pun to go nyon to go li cheng li lo yeah ba anu ta shu la yo non don't know to go li van thi go tu minyo na chi chomo cho ke and most of the time li cho ning nya ho lu ba lu che na che de de jong ni mo ke nyo xie ne ya ni mo ke nyo xie ke ni chi mo yi kho ke mo tao li na e ya de ne khi ni lu ba lu che ya ku ye yu ba tu nian xia tu mi nyo no on nu li no e la no ho ba ho che na e go chi chomo cho ke nyo xie na che de ya ne na ya I kho example. Talk a little bit about your insurance because I know we have a little bit of time.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to be careful about my advertising with my business, but I'll basically just talk about more of my heart for my clients and my community. From a financial point of view, I'm limited on how much content I can say in a public forum like this, but. Yeah, so my company, you can look up my name and you'll be able to know which company I'm with. And then I'm a captive agent, they call it. So I care for my clients with life insurance, home insurance, car insurance. We do a lot of different products and services, over 100 different products and services. But what I really enjoy about my work with my team, I have a Hmong and English team member. I have a Spanish and English team member. And then I have an American, classic white person like me. So we're four people strong. We're about 38 years combined experience.
Yeah.
We love what we do. We love helping our clients. We try to go really deep and go long. We want to be, I call it being a financial advocate. We want to be, an advocate for our clients. We watch out for them. We ask them questions. We get to know them, and we help the real person that's sitting across from us, and not just whoever we want to think was there. We have to get to know them and actually help them. So.
作为你个 holder the state farm 天你个有一点 life insurance agent 你我的 life insurance 的那天或者路费天但是你个店你个你好好偏了呢你 really 是啥办呢 and even though 你没 life insurance 你听了没办到就呢你没给你 share 里头半年呢这点对面对面有了天跑了那么干的了叫那些都对面有那些对压力呢要我 business 样 business 但是你个啥店你路线要的店样的都呢 and so 都呢样的你好对呢 你把ตัวนี้呢叫ตัวนี้做些天可能要好去正经จะช่วยยาเนี่ยก็หายจิตตอนเราด้วยฮะเนี่ยขอ insurance commercial แต่สิ่งที่เราก็เปลี่ยนเราอยากจะหาเตียดีเตียนี่ว่าจะ insurance นะเจนที่เรามันจีจอเนี่ยมันจะเกี่ยวกับเนี่ยลีเนาะเกี่ยวนี่ปุ๊กก็ป้อเต่าแต่นี่เนาะเตีย They show but you know how more again a lot of new and you have a more battle joke the job in your thing no safe family set here and Italy matali not so agency who not here. Would you like to add anything else? We got a minute or two just to conclude our
Yeah, I think the last thing, I'll liken life insurance to what we talked about with the children.
Okay.
That life insurance is like that. You could have permanent life insurance or term life insurance, but the point of the life insurance is not you. The point of the life insurance